Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Tuesday, April 27th, 2021, and today we're going to be talking about the Arizona Senate race that is set to occur in a year and a half from now with Mark Kelly as the incumbent Democratic senator from Arizona defending his Senate seat. And we have some very interesting information coming out of the Republican Party in the state of Arizona. We found out today from a report from the Daily Beast that President Trump is threatening to campaign for a Democrat. Yes, you heard me correctly, that if Doug Ducey ends up the Republican nominee, that Trump is considering endorsing Mark Kelly or the Democratic nominee, which in this case would be Mark Kelly given he is the incumbent. And, with that endorsement, would campaign for such a nominee on the Democratic side. And I think this is very, very insane to think about, that President Trump is even considering endorsing a Democrat. And I think that this actually highlights his true hatred for Governor Doug Ducey. Governor Doug Ducey campaigned with President Trump. Ducey was there for him every single step of the way. But what happened was that Arizona went blue. That's what happened. When Arizona went blue, President Trump demanded that the state of Arizona do an audit, that Doug Ducey prevent the electors from the Democratic side for casting their ballots towards Joe Biden. Trump was demanding that the election results be overturned in Arizona, declaring that the state was a fraudulent state with fraudulent electors with fraudulent votes. But all of these claims unfounded, the Republican governor could not justify making such actions. None of the Republican governors across the country were able to prevent states that Biden legitimately won from voting for Biden in the Electoral College. They really didn't take any preventive measures, mainly because they knew that Trump's claims were baseless. They weren't factual. And because Doug Ducey pushed back, because he did not go with President Trump's plan, saying that the election integrity in Arizona is strong and that Biden legitimately won the state of Arizona, President Trump hated him for it. President Trump began attacking him on Twitter. This is a news story from News 4 Tucson, Arizona, that says that President Trump attacks Governor Ducey in latest Twitter outburst. Now look at the date. That was December 12th, 2020. Time heals all, right? Clearly not with President Trump. 5 months later, President Trump returns to our political atmosphere, returns to our discussion, and begins to make this point that Doug Ducey should not be the Republican nominee for Senate for 2022, arguing that if this does happen, based off sources closest to him, and the Daily Beast and other news sources typically don't get this inside information, and we all know President Trump is very spiteful. And I never really expected him to go this far, but it's not something I'm super shocked about. President Trump has been very open about his strong dislike for Governor Doug Ducey. If in his mind, he believes Ducey is the reason he lost Arizona, not Mark Kelly, because you couldn't really pin it on Mark Kelly. He was an unelected official at the time. I can understand why he may not want to endorse anyone in this race, but him jumping over party lines to potentially endorse and campaign for a Democrat is far from what I expected to hear just a few days ago. And I know that this probably could be, this conversation could be preempted just by the fact that Doug Ducey has said he's not running for Senate in 2022. I remember covering this announcement because he was vilified by the right wing. He was under discussion of being censured by the Arizona GOP. I think, in fact, this is something that is still under consideration. So Ducey announced, I'm not running for Senate. I'm more focused on COVID-19 in my state. I'm more focused on serving out my final term as governor because he cannot run for re-election as governor in the state of Arizona. However, I will say sometimes politicians lie. Sometimes politicians will say one thing and do another. For example, if you remember Steve Bullock, who ran for Senate up in the state of Montana in the 2020 election, he for the longest time said he was not running for Senate and ended up doing so months before, the election actually occurred, 6, 7, 8 months before the election actually occurred. So Steve Bullock ended his presidential bid back in 2019 before the primaries, caucuses, etc. officially occurred, but said that he won't run for Senate, having the people closest to his campaign saying that while he plans to work hard to elect Democrats in the state and across the country in 2020, it will be in his capacity as a governor and a senior voice in the Democratic Party, not as a candidate for United States Senate. He's not running for Senate. That's what they said. Bullock won't run for Senate. He's a popular governor in a state that, the Democratic Party is desperately needing a candidate. He won't run for Senate, though. He just won't. It's an opportunity for Democrats, but he just won't do it. Well, then he comes around. 3 months later, he announces that he's running for Senate in March 2020. Right as COVID-19 was plaguing the nation quite literally, he announces that he is running for United States Senate. Isn't that interesting? So Bullock goes from being completely opposed to it, not even, less than a year out before the election, and then a few months later announcing, you know what, I'm going to run. So while Ducey is telling us now that he won't run for Senate, possibly to avoid criticism or truly because he does not want to run, we won't know his true intentions until right around the primary season. So I'm not going to count on the fact that Ducey is running, but we can still speculate about what might happen if he decides to run. So while, I'm going to see people say, Ducey said he's not going to run, please direct them to this point in the video because politicians lie. It's not something new to our American public here. But, why Ducey? Why is he the target for the Democratic Party as well as the Republican Party? Besides him having this falling out with President Trump, why are Democrats happy about this? And why is this something that actually benefits them? Well, if you look at the election results in the 2020 election, what do you notice? Joe Biden narrowly wins the state. It's by no means a safe Democratic state. If you look at the Senate results with Mark Kelly, he won against Martha McSally by just 2.4%. So both of these margins are very much winnable for the opposition party if the year ends up being favorable. For the GOP, if 2022 is a red wave, well, why wouldn't the Democratic Party, why would the Republican Party not be able to win these Senate races? Why would this not be a possibility? And I think Ducey recognizes that. If he was to win a Senate race, it would be in 2022. It's a newly elected incumbent who was elected under a special election, which means that this would actually be that first full election. Now, Ducey, I'm sure many Democrats were afraid of before Joe Biden won the state of Arizona. Joe Biden winning Arizona and Georgia might have been the best thing that happened to the Democratic Party in recent history. Because he did that, the statewide GOPs fell apart. Let's look at 2018, for example, 2 years before the election. This is why Democrats were afraid of Doug Ducey, not so much now with some of these new announcements. Doug Ducey won his election with 56% of the vote. 56%. The Democrat David Garcia received 41.8%. How did this happen? To put it into perspective, Kyrsten Sinema had just won a Senate race in Arizona on the same ballot by 2.4%. The Democratic Party officially got more Democratic representatives from Arizona than Republican ones on the same ballot. But Doug Ducey won by a lot. Won by 14.2%. Wow. That is a lot of crossover vote. I can't even consider to fathom, how much there were Democratic voters that voted for Doug Ducey. So he was a shoo-in for this Senate race. Without a doubt, he was a shoo-in before it all came crumbling down for the GOP. Joe Biden won Arizona. The statewide GOP and Donald Trump went on the offense against Doug Ducey. He was attacked by President Trump, and now we see that if he runs for Senate, Trump is considering endorsing the Democrat. And this would be an even worse scenario than if Doug Ducey doesn't run. Because while Ducey may have some of that crossover appeal, the lack of enthusiasm and the lack of energy, and if Trump truly follows through with this promise, there is no scenario in which the GOP wins this Senate race with Doug Ducey. He is done. President Trump single-handedly propped up and ended his career quickly. He could have led him into 2022 had he accepted the election results and said, now we need a check on President Biden. Instead, what did he do? He attacked the Republican governor who just won by 14 points. The only statewide Republican that could have actually challenged Mark Kelly and won. And now he's out of consideration entirely. Unless he decides to defy President Trump's wishes. Because he did that before. And what would that do to our Senate map? Well, we know there are a number of swing seats, a number of Democratic ones, a number of Republican ones. Pretty much we're going to be in for a pretty competitive election cycle. Now, the Democratic Party, if locked up in Arizona, will have one less Senate race to worry about. If President Trump truly endorses Mark Kelly, and I know it may have seemed super far-fetched a week ago, 2 weeks ago, it's not something that would have been outside of the realm of possibility, but not something you were expecting to be released by an Arizona newspaper or by the New York Times, Business Insider, etc. This threat, I will say, I think is very legitimate because we know President Trump is petty. We know he will spite the Republican Party if they do not abide by his wishes. And that's what he's doing here. He's making sure, in no reality does Ducey run for Senate. Ducey announced he's not running for Senate, and Trump and his surrogates probably thought maybe it was similar to the Steve Bullock announcement. I'm not running for Senate. I'm going to focus on being governor. I'm going to focus on keeping my state intact. I'm going to focus on electing Republicans or Democrats elsewhere. But then a few months later decide it's actually a good opportunity. You see, Steve Bullock, while who didn't win, lost by 10 points, came much closer than Joe Biden did at winning the state. And it was one of the best performances for a Democrat, recently in the Senate, besides John Tester in this Senate race. So if you're looking at Steve Bullock, well, he performed better than most Democrats would have, the best out of any Democrat that was in Montana that was eligible for this Senate race. So Steve Bullock, while who wasn't able to win, did pretty well. And that's what I think Doug Ducey might actually be looking at and saying, before this Trump threat, that I can say I'm not running now, avoid the criticism from the media, avoid the opposition research from the Democratic side for right now, and then a month before the primary say, you know what, I'm running for Senate, maintain the popularity, somehow get over this, attacking from President Trump back in December and January, and run for Senate. Well, now President Trump, is remembering, and President Trump is coming out in full force. Think about this, comprehend this for a second, that there is a situation in which Trump is telling his allies that if Ducey is that nominee, that he might campaign for the Democrat. Can you imagine what a Kelly-Trump rally would look like? I mean, I don't think it would ever happen, but can you imagine I'm sure the Democratic Party would not be wanting to turn down Trump's endorsement in Arizona because it would lock up the victory. I mean, if Trump was to endorse Mark Kelly, I'm being very honest, and I think Mark Kelly would win by 10, 20, maybe 30 points. Donald Trump has the majority of the Republican Party in Arizona on his side. And if they follow him and they say, you know what, we don't want Doug Ducey, we can win this race in 6 years from now without a rhino, while I don't understand the argument that I would much rather have a rhino than a Democrat if I was a Republican, but then again, I'm not on the Republican side, and Donald Trump really just does not like Doug Ducey. I truly believe Ducey is receiving all this criticism because he was the governor. That's it. Mark Kelly isn't receiving it because he wasn't an elected official. He was not the one who was pressured by President Trump to overturn the election results. And when Doug Ducey put his foot down and said no, President Trump said, I will remember that, and I will come back to haunt you. So 2022 probably won't be seeing a Doug Ducey, entering in bid. I think Trump won't go as far as endorsing a Democrat. I think this is really just to push away Ducey from actually running for Senate. But when it does come down to a Democrat versus a Republican, President Trump isn't stupid. While some people I do think believe President Trump is stupid, he knows exactly what he's doing almost 100% of the time. He does make a lot of missteps, but they help him. When he accidentally, in quotes, accidentally says to stand back and stand by to the Proud Boys, you knew exactly what he was trying to say without explicitly saying it. Who he was trying to make sure did not, move away from voting for him because, he did not want to lose any voters in the 2020 election, while still being able to say, I pushed them away. I pretty much, did not want the endorsement of white supremacists, whatever it might be. It's not just that. President Trump says things because he knows it gets a reaction. He knows that any press for him is good press. Anytime he is mentioned to the American public, he views it as a positive. So he's going to start doing things like this. And he knows what this does. It ramps up media attention behind President Trump. It solidifies the amount of support that he has within the GOP just by making it, making a problem out of something that hasn't occurred yet. Saying that if Ducey runs, I'm endorsing a Democrat, then fueling all this speculation, fueling videos like my own, and then building more name recognition for himself and more of power, for 2022. And I think that, while the media does not have to cover it, this is stuff that sometimes should be covered. And I think it's right to cover this because this is telling us why Doug Ducey yet again will not run for Senate. And if he does, why the Democratic Party may not actually have to worry about Arizona all along. And it seems as if because of Donald Trump, the GOP is finding bad candidates in some of these races. This is not a bias issue. This is not a me trying to prop up the Democratic Party issue. The realistic part of these Senate races and the unfortunate part for the GOP is that they have knocked out their two strongest candidates in Georgia and Arizona, Doug Collins and Doug Ducey. Well, both named Doug. But both of them, I would say Doug Collins would have fared better than Loeffler in that special. And Doug Ducey won by 14 points in 2018, a Democrat +8 national year. And yet, the Republican Party looks at him and says, we'd rather have the losing guy. We'd rather have President Trump. We'd rather have Martha McSally. We'd rather have Martha McSally, Kelly Ward, whatever Republicans that have been full-on President Trump that always lose. They neglect the one statewide official that won by a very significant amount, all because Joe Biden won the state of Arizona. It all circles back to the November 3rd election. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2022 Senate election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.